Imagine you spend like 20 years building up a company
Okay.
or, maybe a community organization or even just a highly specialized team at your job. You pour your absolute blood, sweat, and tears into this thing.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there, or at least seen it.
Right. And by all external metrics, you are just wildly successful. Record profits, packed rooms, glowing reviews, all of it.
The whole 9 yards.
Exactly. And then you decide to retire. You finally step away.
And that's when the other shoe drops.
It is. Within 6 months, the entire thing completely collapses.
Wow. Yeah.
So the question is, was that actually a success? Or was it just a highly functional monument to your own micromanagement?
Man, that is a brutal question.
It really is.
Because it forces us to distinguish between something that, requires our constant exhausting maintenance just to survive versus something that actually possesses its own internal capacity to live and grow.
Right. And that is exactly what we're getting into today. So I want to warmly welcome you, the learner, to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are taking a really hard look at an incredibly dense, just provocative document today. It's titled Movement Strategy and Reproduction Systems.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to extract the core, unvarnished truth about how lasting movements are actually built.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear right up front, the source material we're working with today is anchored in Christian theology.
Right. It focuses specifically on church planting and discipleship.
Yes, but as we read through these pages, something just became immediately obvious. The psychological and organizational principles in here, they are completely universal.
Oh, 100%.
We are talking about multiplication versus addition. We're talking about the fatal flaw of the centralized bottleneck.
Yeah, so whether you're scaling a tech startup or running a nonprofit or frankly just trying to raise a family that operates on shared values rather than, parental dictatorships.
Right.
The blueprints and the warnings, they're exactly the same.
Okay, let's unpack this because the text really forces a total reevaluation of how human beings measure impact.
It does. Our default instinct across almost every culture and industry is to build what the author might liken to a sandcastle.
A sandcastle. Yeah, I love this analogy.
Right. You go down to the beach, you carry these heavy buckets of water, you pack the sand, you carve out these intricate little windows.
Right, you're putting in so much effort.
It's a masterpiece of effort. But the moment you walk away, or, the moment the tide comes in,
It's gone.
it just washes away because it has no biological life.
Contrast that with an acorn. You push a tiny, insignificant little acorn into the dirt.
Yeah.
It takes zero engineering. It doesn't look impressive at all. Nobody applauds you for planting an acorn.
No ribbon-cutting ceremony for the acorn?
Exactly. But that acorn has DNA. It drops more acorns, which grow into a forest that outlasts you by 300 years.
And that tension, the sandcastle versus the acorn, that's exactly where the author starts dismantling our modern obsession with success.
So let's look at how the text actually defines that illusion of success. It draws a very sharp, very uncomfortable line between addition and multiplication.
It's a super uncomfortable line for a lot of leaders.
Because in the world of this document, addition is the packed auditorium. It's the blockbuster launch day.
Right. It's getting more people to attend an event or increasing the annual budget, adding more programs to the roster.
But wait, in literally any normal context, addition is the goal.
Sure.
Like if my company hires 50 new employees this quarter, the board is thrilled.
They're throwing a party.
Right. If a local community center gets 300 people to show up to a fundraiser instead of 50, they celebrate. So why is the text treating addition like a trap?
Well, the text is careful to say that addition isn't inherently evil.
Okay.
Welcoming a new person is good. Making a new sale is good. The trap springs shut when addition becomes your final definition of success.
Oh, I see.
Think about the underlying architecture of addition. It relies entirely on a centralized source of power.
Give me an example of that.
So, in a church setting, that sender is the highly gifted speaker, the polished band, the massive marketing budget.
Right.
In a corporate context, it's the brilliant founder who personally oversees every product design, or maybe the star salesperson who brings in 80% of the revenue.
Wow, yeah. The center literally has to hold everything together.
Exactly. So the gravity is constantly pulling inward.
Everything orbits the center.
Yes. And because the gravity pulls inward, an additive system inadvertently trains people to become consumers.
Consumers, that's a strong word.
It teaches them how to attend, right? It teaches them how to admire a really good performance.
Or maybe how to volunteer just to keep the event running.
Sure, but it fundamentally fails to teach them how to reproduce the life of the organization themselves.
You know, I see that dynamic all the time in the corporate world.
Yeah.
You have a manager who is just so competent that their team never actually learns how to solve problems.
Oh, that is such a classic scenario.
Right. They just learn how to bring problems to the manager faster. The manager is the bottleneck. Yeah. The company might be growing like they're adding revenue, adding clients, but it's really maintenance masquerading as momentum.
That's a great way to put it. Maintenance masquerading as momentum.
Because the CEO is working 80 hours a week,
Mhm.
and if they take a 2-week vacation, the entire operation grinds to a halt.
Which is the definition of structural fragility.
Yeah.
Now, multiplication operates on a completely different logic. It distributes life outward.
Outward instead of inward.
Right. The text points out that this is actually the theological logic of the kingdom of God, tracing it all the way back to Genesis.
Right. The command to be fruitful and multiply.
Exactly. It isn't framed as just some biological imperative. It's presented as the fundamental design principle of a healthy universe.
Because dead things can only be added to, like stacking bricks.
But living things reproduce.
That brings up those famous parables from the New Testament that the author mentions. The seed planted in the soil, the yeast working through the dough.
Yeah, these are invisible, unimpressive, highly organic processes.
And they are fully decentralized.
Decentralization is absolutely the key word here. I mean, think about yeast. When yeast works through dough, it doesn't build a headquarters in the center of the loaf.
Right, and demand that all the surrounding flour report to it.
Exactly. It spreads by touching the molecule next to it, transferring its properties, and empowering that molecule to do the exact same thing.
So a multiplying organization literally turns its consumers into its producers.
Yes. The growth becomes exponential because the reliance on the center has been entirely severed.
But let's press into that reliance on the center for a second, because breaking that reliance feels incredibly dangerous.
Oh, it's terrifying for most leaders.
I mean, if you are the leader, if you're the one with the vision, the theological training, the MBA, the expertise,
Right. You've put in the work.
handing over the keys to the outer edges of the organization, that feels like a total recipe for disaster. You lose quality control.
And that fear of losing quality control is exactly what drives human beings to build fortresses instead of planting seeds.
The fortress. This was a huge theme in the text.
It really is. The document spends a significant amount of time unpacking the psychology behind this fortress mentality.
So what defines a fortress?
Well, a fortress is built to resist change. It's designed to protect what is valuable inside, to keep threats out, and above all, to maintain absolute control.
And the author notes that this almost always starts with incredibly noble intentions.
Almost always. I mean, nobody sets out to build a stifling bureaucracy on purpose.
Right.
In a religious context, people want to protect doctrine. They don't want the truth to be watered down.
They want to avoid cultural compromise.
Exactly. And in a corporate context, you want to protect the brand identity. You want to ensure the customer experience is absolutely flawless.
Those are totally valid, good desires.
They are. But when preservation becomes your dominant operational instinct, the community begins to turn inward.
It hardens.
Yes, it starts centralizing control to minimize risk, and it heavily professionalizes the work.
Okay, professionalization. Let's unpack that, because it introduces a concept the text refers to as the clergy-laity divide.
That's a crucial term in this document.
For you, the learner, who might be unfamiliar with the historical baggage of that term, it basically means drawing a hard, uncrossable line between the credentialed experts who do the real work and the ordinary masses who just sit there and receive it.
Right. It's the assumption that only the professional, the person with the seminary degree or the person with the specialized title is actually qualified to handle the core mission of the organization.
And the text argues that this mindset turns the church or any organization into a museum.
Yes. The museum analogy.
That imagery completely stopped me in my tracks.
It's powerful, isn't it? A museum is a beautiful place. It's deeply respected.
But it's fundamentally a place where artifacts are preserved behind glass.
Exactly. You walk in, you admire the expertise of the curator, you read the little bronze plaque, but you do not touch anything.
You are purely a spectator.
Right. But a body, on the other hand, a living body, is messy. It gets injured, it heals, and most importantly, it reproduces life.
Think about the cost of that dependency, though. If you build an organization where only the experts are allowed to do the heavy lifting, you are actively robbing ordinary people of their agency.
You're benching your best players without even realizing it.
The text points back to the early church in the book of Acts. It didn't expand across the Roman Empire because they built excellent museums.
No, not at all.
It expanded because the mission was carried by fishermen, tent makers, widows, unimpressive people by worldly standards who were entrusted with complete agency.
When you centralize power in a fortress, you create passivity, period.
Wow.
The Great Commission, the biblical mandate to go and make disciples, it requires active reproduction. It does not say, hire a professional to make disciples while you watch.
But our modern systems are heavily biased toward the latter.
They really are.
Which brings us to the most painful diagnostic question in the entire document. I warned you about this earlier, the learner. If you are in any position of authority right now, listen to this question.
Brace yourself.
The author asks, if the original leader disappeared, would the work continue?
It just strips away all the vanity metrics, doesn't it?
It's an absolute gut punch because it forces you to confront your own ego. I had to sit back and think about projects I've run in the past. Did I secretly love being the bottleneck?
It's hard to admit, but yeah.
Let's be honest. It feels good to be needed. It feels good when people say, oh, we can't make this decision without you.
It strokes our pride to be the one holding the keys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do we build complex structures specifically because they require our constant supervision?
And that is the insidious nature of the fortress. It makes the commander of the fortress feel indispensable.
Right.
But true leadership, according to this framework of multiplication, requires the humility to render yourself obsolete.
Render yourself obsolete.
It means rejoicing when others carry the mission forward, even if they do it completely without you, and frankly, even if they do it slightly differently than you would have.
A seed cannot remain safely hidden in the farmer's pocket forever. To do what it was designed to do, it has to be thrown into the dirt.
It has to get messy.
It has to be surrendered to processes that the farmer cannot control. It survives only by giving itself away.
That's beautifully said.
So if we know the fortress is a trap, and we know we have to plant the seed, how do we actually do the generational handoff? How do we build something that survives the founder?
Well, the author directs us to a very specific, really revolutionary sentence written by the Apostle Paul.
Okay, let's look at it.
It's found in his letter, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2.
Just a single verse.
Just one sentence. And the context is crucial here. Paul is nearing the end of his life. He is quite literally about to disappear from the scene.
Right, he's in prison, right.
Exactly. He is writing to his younger protege, Timothy, and he lays out the architectural blueprint for reproduction.
What does he say?
Paul writes, "What you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also."
It's just a single sentence, but the text pulls out 4 distinct generations from it.
Yeah, let's break that down. Generation 1 is Paul.
Okay.
Generation 2 is Timothy. Generation 3 is the faithful men or faithful people.
Yeah.
And Generation 4 is others also.
Paul, Timothy, faithful people, others also.
Right. It is a continuous, unbroken chain. There are no dead ends allowed.
So if it stops anywhere, the system fails.
Exactly. If the truth stops with Timothy, it failed. If it stops with the faithful people, it failed. It has to reach the 4th generation to prove that the system is actually capable of infinite reproduction.
The verb there is what really caught my attention. Paul doesn't say, teach these concepts to faithful people. He says, entrust them.
Yes. The Greek concept there implies a deeply relational stewardship.
Like giving someone the keys to your house.
Exactly. You are not just transferring academic data, you are handing over something immensely valuable, and you're handing over the authority to wield it.
But look at who he is entrusting it to. This is where I struggle, and I know a lot of leaders listening to this will struggle.
Oh, this is the hardest part for modern leaders.
Right, because Paul does not tell Timothy to look for the most gifted or the most articulate or the most charismatic people. He explicitly says to find faithful people.
Faithful people, not superstars.
If I am running an organization and I want it to scale globally, I am hunting for the top 1% of talent. I want the brilliant strategist. I want the charismatic visionary. Why is Paul prioritizing mere faithfulness?
Because Paul is building for resilience, not just scale.
Yeah, resilience.
We tend to build systems that reward visibility and talent. We promote the person who gives the best presentation.
Naturally.
But the text argues that in a multiplying movement, dependability matters exponentially more than brilliance.
So what does faithfulness actually mean in this context?
It means reliability, humility, teachability, and most importantly, obedience.
A faithful person obeys what they know.
Exactly. Think about it. A highly gifted person who lacks faithfulness might gather a massive crowd, right?
So they get people in the room.
But they will fail to reproduce the mission because their ego gets in the way, or they refuse correction, or they try to hoard all the glory for themselves.
They become a new bottleneck.
Precisely. A faithful person, on the other hand, might be completely obscure. They might stumble over their words, but if they take the seed and plant it, they will carry the truth into the next generation. They are structurally sound.
I hear that, but I have to push back on the practical reality of it.
Push away.
Let's say you hand the keys of the movement over to, quote-unquote, ordinary, faithful people who have no formal theological training, no seminary degrees, no understanding of ancient Greek or historical context.
Right.
Don't you inevitably risk sloppy theology? If your primary goal is speed and reproduction, aren't you just guaranteeing that the message gets mutated and watered down? Doesn't moving fast mean we lose depth?
That is the ultimate fear of the fortress builder, and, to be fair, it is a legitimate concern.
Right. Nobody wants the core truth to be corrupted.
But the text addresses this head-on by arguing that multiplication is not sloppiness. In fact, true depth is what makes rapid growth safe.
Wait, how does Dex make speed safe? Sounds like a paradox.
The author uses two really brilliant metaphors to explain this. The first is a relay race.
Okay.
Think about how a 4x100-meter relay is won. It is not won merely by putting the 4 fastest humans on the track.
No, you have to pass the baton.
Right. Races are routinely lost by incredibly fast teams because they fumble the baton. A relay race is won by the clean, careful, highly disciplined handoff.
A sloppy handoff literally disqualifies the team.
Exactly. So the speed is in the running, but the safety is in the simplicity and clarity of the handoff.
So the core message has to be simple enough to be passed cleanly.
Yes. And the second metaphor is the living vine.
The vine.
A vine grows organically. It reaches out over walls. It wraps around trees. It looks a bit wild.
It looks chaotic.
It looks chaotic, but it is not careless. Every single leaf, every single grape contains the exact same intricate DNA as the root. The text argues that complexity is the enemy of expansion. Simplicity does not mean shallowness. It means clarity.
That's a great distinction. Simplicity means clarity.
If your theology or your corporate strategy is so complex that only a PhD can understand it, it cannot travel. It will die in the exact room where it was spoken.
Wow.
Reproducible simplicity strips away the cultural baggage and the unnecessary jargon, focusing entirely on the core truth.
Okay, so let's get incredibly practical. We are talking about passing the baton cleanly. We're talking about giving ordinary, faithful people a reproducible tool for they don't need a PhD to engage with deep truth. What is the actual mechanism? How do you put a complex ancient text into the hands of a blue-collar worker or a busy parent and say, hey, you can lead this?
The text introduces the primary engine of this movement strategy. It is called Discovery Bible Study, or DBS.
Okay, so when I first saw the phrase Discovery Bible Study, my brain instantly pictured a very dry academic setting.
Oh, totally. Fluorescent lights.
Yes, fluorescent lights, a whiteboard, someone drawing a timeline of the Assyrian Empire while everyone else drinks lukewarm coffee and tries to stay awake.
A classic transfer of information model. The expert speaks, the students take notes.
Right. But the text describes something radically different. DBS is designed specifically to dismantle that clergy-laity divide we talked about earlier.
It is an accessible pathway of obedience, not an academic seminar.
So how does it actually work?
The brilliance of DBS is in its mechanics. It is built around a deceptively simple set of questions. Let's walk through them, because the psychology of these questions is what actually makes the system work.
Let's do it.
So, a group of people gathers. They don't need to be theologians. Frankly, they could be people exploring faith for the very first time. They read a short passage of scripture.
Usually they read it multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Or it'll be in different translations, or someone retells it in their own words.
Exactly.
Just to make sure everyone actually knows what the story says before they start analyzing it.
That's step one. Then, the facilitator, and notice I said facilitator, not teacher, asks the first question. What does this passage say?
Let's pause on that. What does it say? It sounds almost too basic.
It does.
But the text points out that this is an incredibly powerful psychological boundary.
Yeah.
Because human beings love to immediately jump to, well, I think this means, or this reminds me of my favorite podcast.
We constantly want to inject our own opinions, But asking what does it say forces the group to anchor themselves to the objective text.
It levels the playing field.
Completely. You don't need a commentary. You just need to observe the words on the page.
Then come the next two questions. What does this reveal about God? And what does it reveal about people?
These two questions act as a theological compass. Asking what it reveals about God keeps the focus upward, preventing the study from just devolving into a self-help seminar.
Right.
And asking what it reveals about people acts as a mirror. It forces the group to look at human nature, our fears, our flaws, our need for redemption.
So far, this is a good study. It's solid, but the text argues it doesn't become a movement until the next two questions.
Yeah.
The fourth question is, what do I need to obey?
This is the pivot point. This is where information must transform into action.
There is a story in the document that illustrates this perfectly.
Yeah.
It's about a new believer, a woman who has almost no theological vocabulary.
Oh, this story is incredible.
Right. She hasn't been in the church long enough to learn how to, play the game, how to give the quote-unquote right spiritual-sounding answers.
Right, she's a blank slate.
She is sitting in one of these simple discovery groups, and they read a passage about mercy. They go through the questions. What does it say? What does it reveal? Then they hit question 4. What do I need to obey?
And what happens?
She realizes, sitting right there, that she has been holding on to deep bitterness toward her estranged sister. She realizes she needs to forgive her.
Now, in a traditional model, she might write that down in a cute journal, feel a brief sense of conviction, and just forget about it by Tuesday.
Exactly. But because she is in this specific framework, it isn't abstract. That very week, she picks up the phone. She calls her estranged sister. She actually does the hard, messy work of reconciliation.
And then, and this is the crucial part, at the next gathering of the group, she shares what happened.
Because the fifth question of the framework is, who will I share this with?
Think about how this shifts the entire paradigm of education. In the modern world, whether you're in a university or a corporate training seminar, we measure learning by retention.
Right. Can you recite the facts? Did you pass the multiple choice test?
But the text argues that in the kingdom of God, learning is fundamentally incomplete until obedience occurs.
The kingdom measures learning by truth obeyed. The text actually calls it obedient learning.
Obedient learning.
You haven't truly learned the passage about mercy until you have shown mercy to your sister. If you can parse the Greek word for mercy, but you still hate your family, you have learned nothing.
And by embedding obedience and sharing into the fundamental DNA of the group, DBS restores what theologians call the priesthood of all believers.
Meaning what, exactly?
It proves that the Holy Spirit can speak to a new believer through the text just as clearly as to a scholar.
I see.
The facilitator's job is not to give a brilliant monologue. If someone gives a wild off-base opinion, the facilitator doesn't need to panic and deliver a theological correction. They just ask, where you see that in the passage.
Oh, that's brilliant.
They just point it back to the source text.
And that removes the bottleneck completely.
Yep.
If the method is simply to read, ask 5 questions, commit to obedience, and share, then that woman who just forgave her sister is entirely capable of taking that exact same framework and starting a group with her neighbors next week.
Exactly. She doesn't need to go to seminary first. She just needs the text and the questions.
That is the essence of a reproducible engine. It is highly structured, but deeply organic.
Which naturally leads us to a word that makes a lot of creative, grassroots, organic-minded people completely cringe.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. It's the S word.
Systems.
Systems. If you have dozens or hundreds of these little decentralized groups popping up in living rooms, coffee shops, break rooms, led by people who have only been doing this for a month, my organizational brain is screaming that this is a recipe for absolute chaos.
It sounds like it, right?
Unless there is a structure holding it all together, won't it just splinter and burn out?
This is the great tension of movement building. The text argues passionately that reproducible systems are not the same thing as bureaucracy.
What's the difference?
Bureaucracy is self-preservation. Good systems are stewardship. Stewardship is the careful, responsible management of something entrusted to your care.
So how does the text navigate the tension between chaos and control? Because those seem to be the two ditches we constantly fall into.
Chaos is exactly what you feared. Nothing is repeatable, everyone is improvising, no one knows what the core values are, and if the founder isn't in the room to make a decision, everything stalls out.
Right. And control.
Control, on the other hand, is the fortress we talked about earlier. Everything is so tightly managed, vetted, and policed that the life is just choked right out of it.
So what is the middle path?
The author uses the analogy of riverbanks. Good systems are like riverbanks.
Okay.
The banks do not generate the water. The water, the life, the momentum, the spirit flows on its own. But the riverbanks give the water direction.
They channel the energy so it keeps moving forward.
Exactly. If you remove the riverbanks, the water just spills out indiscriminately across the plain. It loses its force and turns into a shallow, stagnant puddle. A good system serves the life of the movement by removing unnecessary friction.
I really resonate with the riverbank analogy. It reframes structure as a conduit for energy rather than a cage.
It does.
The text pushes this even further by advocating for a one-page process. The idea is that any organization, a church, a business, a nonprofit, should be able to fit its core operating system on a single, readable piece of paper.
Just one page.
It should clearly answer, how does a group start? How do we study the material? How do we identify new leaders? And what is the exact mechanism for multiplying a group when it gets too large?
Because if you cannot articulate your reproductive process on one page, it is too complex.
They won't transfer.
Exactly. It will not transfer. It will require a professional to interpret it.
Let's apply this to something as mundane as hosting a large family dinner.
Okay, I like this.
Say you have 20 people coming over for Thanksgiving. If no one is assigned to set the table, no one is assigned to carve the turkey, no one is assigned to manage the drinks, and you just assume the magic of family will make it happen organically.
It is going to be total chaos.
Chaos. People will bump into each other in the kitchen, the food will get cold, some people will be incredibly stressed out, and others will just sit on the couch feeling totally useless.
Right.
But if you have a simple system, you handle the plates, I'll carve the meat, you pour the wine, the energy flows beautifully.
And that highlights a really profound insight from the text. Clarity is a form of love.
Clarity is a form of love. I love that. Say more about that.
When a newcomer enters your organization, they don't know the unwritten rules, they don't know the inside jokes, they are inherently insecure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being the new person is terrifying.
If your system is ambiguous and relies on everyone just, catching the vibe, the newcomer feels paralyzed.
Right.
But if you have a clear, simple, reproducible system, you are removing their fear. You are telling them, here is exactly how you participate. Here is how you can succeed here.
That's so empowering.
It requires immense humility from a leader to strip away the complex, highly produced systems that look impressive to their peers and instead embrace a simple system that actually empowers the lowest common denominator.
But here's the final friction point. You can have the most beautiful, decentralized blueprint. You can have the engine of discovery Bible study. You can build perfect riverbanks and hand out your one-page process.
Yeah.
But none of it works if the people inside the system are passively waiting to be spoon-fed.
Ah, yes.
The entire architecture of multiplication relies on the posture of the individual participant. Which brings us to the final concept, the Berean spirit.
To understand this, the text points back to a historical account in Acts chapter 17. The Apostle Paul travels to a town called Berea and begins teaching.
Okay.
The author of Acts, Luke, describes the Christians in Berea with a very specific, highly complimentary word. He calls them noble.
Noble, not a word we use a lot today. What made them noble? It wasn't their wealth or their political status, right?
No, it was entirely about their cognitive and spiritual posture toward the information they were receiving.
What were they doing?
The text says they received the word with eagerness, and they examined the scriptures daily to see if what Paul was saying was actually true.
Eagerness and examination. I want to spend some time on this because it is a brilliant psychological matrix. If you separate those two traits, you get disaster.
You really do.
Think about eagerness without examination. If you are eager to learn, eager to be inspired, but you have no critical thinking skills and you don't examine the source material, you are just gullible.
You're a sponge.
Right. You are a sponge absorbing whatever charismatic speaker happens to be standing in front of you.
And you become highly susceptible to cults of personality, bad data, and outright manipulation.
Exactly. But flip it around. What is examination without eagerness?
Oh, that's just as bad.
If you are constantly analyzing, fact-checking, looking for flaws, but you have no open-hearted eagerness to actually be changed by the truth, you become cynical.
You become cold.
You are the person crossing their arms at the back of the room, tearing down everyone else's ideas, but contributing no life of your own.
But the Bereans avoided both ditches. They maintained humility and discernment simultaneously.
They balanced it perfectly.
And what is truly remarkable about this story is who they were examining. They weren't fact-checking a rookie.
Right, they were fact-checking the Apostle Paul.
The ultimate expert, the guy who literally wrote half the New Testament. Yet they did not just blindly accept his teaching. They went back to the primary source to verify it.
And Paul didn't scold them for insubordination. Luke praises them as noble.
There is a scathing warning in the document for our modern culture regarding this. It warns about the danger of being spiritually entertained but scripturally underfed.
Spiritually entertained, but scripturally underfed. I read that and I felt it in my bones.
It's a gut punch.
And it applies to everything, not just religion. We live in an era of infinite content. We have podcasts on demand, viral essays, beautifully produced documentaries available 24/7.
We are drowning in information.
We are constantly entertained by brilliant communicators, but we lack an anchor. We know how to consume, but we have completely outsourced our discernment.
A consumer mindset is the absolute death of a movement.
Why is that?
If your organization is populated by people who are only trained to listen to the most articulate speaker on their phone, they are entirely dependent on someone else's expertise.
They can't reproduce.
No, they cannot reproduce. They can only forward a link.
So how do we stop doing that? How do we break the habit of being consumers of intellectual and spiritual experiences?
Well, this is where the genius of the DBS framework ties everything together.
How so?
The discovery framework actually forces the Berean spirit. Because there is no expert standing at the front of the room delivering a monologue, the group is forced to look down at the text themselves.
Oh, right.
If a question comes up, they can't just ask, well, what did that famous author say this means? They have to ask, what does this specific text actually say?
A community full of Bereans is a community that cannot be manipulated. It produces deep, unshakable conviction, profound ownership of the mission, and radical obedience.
Because when a person discovers the truth for themselves in the primary source, it lands with a weight and an authority that borrowed excitement never can.
Borrowed excitement fades the moment the music stops.
Or the charismatic CEO resigns.
Exactly. Personal conviction, born of personal discovery, endures. It changes behavior, and behavior reproduces.
It's the difference between watching someone else eat a Michelin star meal and actually chewing the food yourself.
Wow, yes.
The nourishment, the caloric energy required to go out and work, that only happens when you chew it yourself.
And that internal nourishment is the exact energy required to multiply the movement. A noble heart is the prerequisite for a reproducible life.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been a heavy, incredible journey through this material. We started by dismantling the illusion of additive success, the trap of the packed room, and the exhausted founder.
Right, the sandcastle.
We looked at the danger of building a fortress of control and how professionalization creates passive spectators.
The museum versus the body.
We dug into the Apostle Paul's blueprint for generational handoffs, choosing faithful dependability over flashy giftedness.
The clean handoff of the baton.
We spent time unpacking the mechanics of the discovery framework and how obedient learning changes everything.
Truth obeyed.
We reframed systems as loving riverbanks instead of suffocating bureaucracy. And finally, we explored the noble posture of the Bereans' eagerness and examination.
It's a lot to take in, but it's a complete paradigm shift.
It really is. But as we close this deep dive, I want to bring it all the way back to you, the learner. Think about the domain you operate in. Think about your business, your team, your classroom, or your home.
The stakes are real.
The questions this document forces us to confront are unavoidable. Are you building a monument to your own expertise?
Are you carrying buckets of water to maintain a sandcastle that requires your constant presence to survive?
Or are you planting seeds? Are you creating bottlenecks by hoarding responsibility because it makes you feel important?
Or are you actively entrusting knowledge, agency, and power to faithful people who can teach others also?
Those are the diagnostic questions that separate a temporary success from a generational legacy.
They really are.
And I want to leave you with one final, deeply personal thought. It builds on everything we've discussed today, but it asks something very specific of you.
What is it?
The text repeatedly insists that the kingdom of God and any true movement is generative. It is life reproducing life. We talked a lot about the acorn today.
Right.
But here's the biological reality of the acorn. For that seed to multiply, for it to become the oak tree and eventually the sprawling forest, it literally has to be buried in the dark.
It has to break open.
It has to completely die to its original self-contained form.
Wow.
If you truly want to leave a lasting legacy in any field, in any relationship, in any organization, what part of your own ego must die?
What part of your need for control
Or your desire to be the smartest person in the room?
or your addiction to being indispensable?
Must you be willing to bury so that your influence can truly multiply? You cannot hold on to the acorn forever if you want a forest. You have to plant it, let it go, and trust the process of life.
That's the ultimate challenge.
It is. Thank you for spending your time with us on this deep dive. Keep seeking the truth, keep asking the hard questions, and most importantly, keep reproducing what you learn. We'll see you next time.